Yeah, I mean, just look forward in the dangers of e-personality. If he's an introvert, incel or whatever, and when he comes out on the internet, he has this, on the same way. But your unconscious, your subconscious is different than Gandalf's subconscious.
Logic and science dictate that not only consciousness doesn't exist, consciousness is in fact patience of the process with the connection between the levels of a person's soul and how it reincarnates.
But I'm not going to spur on the issue because I'm not a woman. It's not my issue.
About how one day you're going to fulfill the Canadian dream and tomorrow go to work and have a great day and I'm going to be successful. And one day I'm going to have my own apartment. I'm going to have my own parties with my own friends over. And I'm going to have my own possessions. I'm going to see things that I want and just buy them.
Yeah, but that's just so to say, a worthless.
Hello and welcome back. Ready for the show, it looks like. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Looking forward to our chat this weekend. I'll hand it over to you, Doovid, for the introductions.
Yeah, great to be back. As always, another week, another activity, review. But I'm happy Jennifer seemed to play ball and test out this flowing, at least make an outline. And I think it's going to benefit her, hopefully move the show forward. And then we'll probably keep up Thursday night debate prep as we have debates to prep. And, a lot of things going on there with possibly on Thursday. I think that was the only stream I appeared in besides the Thursday night debate prep. Jennifer had her show on JF on Odyssey. So not a huge amount of views, but, good show, good conversation. I think thoughts and allowed her to explain quite a few. We'll go over that. And since I got Jennifer doing this flowing, I think she made a bunch of new diagrams. I think the flowing exercise will probably, be beneficial as a mind building. So you see someone as intelligent, as well thought out as Jennifer, how flowing in front of your very own eyes, will improve her, one of the activities that will have people do flowing. And I wouldn't even be mind works. I just, because I debated, I knew that it existed and needed to be done and was an important activity. And actually artificial intelligence and computer software. So that will probably be pretty exciting to me. My eBay book sale is going pretty good. Like I'm doing more books and, making some money, thank God. So pardon me. So pretty, excited about that. And so I guess that's about it. I went to Detroit ISCON today. I saw that there was a deity installation for a man that I'm friendly with, and so I went to the ceremony. Like, I wore a mask, I served prasad, I helped set up prasad. I even played the mridanga for a few minutes and chanted. So I have to see the direction of COVID-19. Like, it's possible there's still a good few hundred COVID-19 cases a day in this area of Michigan. It's almost 90 degrees outside, so it just really warmed up. But it's possible I'll be getting back to some activities. So for that, I'll hand it over to Jennifer. Maybe I'll chant a Hare Krishna tune, but
sometimes.
Okay, so I'll just give a basic Hare Krishna tune. I'll give two tunes that are just repetitive, one tune that's chanted again and again. I'll do each of them twice, and these are both kind of tunes that are popular. Official traveling sannyasis more likely to use these tunes. So just a generic Hare Krishna chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this tune is pretty popular before Bhagavad class. That after singing Jairad Madhava right before giving a class on Bhagavad. Sorry, just one second. The tune just slipped my mind.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that with us.
Okay, I was going to do two,
okay.
but for whatever reason, the setting, they just announced Ratha Yatha, the big one, back to some devotional service like that. So please, Jennifer.
Well, as Doovid said, I had a pretty exciting week, and a bit tricky because there's not one necessarily step-by-step algorithm of how to do these things, and just getting the practice really helps. Like, I started with sort of a joke, flowing the John Vance Claire Caw further, and I floated the JF conversation, so that ended up being quite long, and the entire file, I think, is like, make the file size huge, and I think this is pretty helpful just generally, so we can, I don't know if you can read it in the, I don't know if it's good to have it all in one page. Like, I'm still in the learning
now
phase,
it's readable,
like going back and forth.
For me, it's readable where you have it on the full screen at this Zoom, like conventions, important words are capitalized. I'm not sure what's purple and orange. So did you want to go through this? Did you want to do that now? Did you just want to do a week in review and some, banter?
And sit down and not talk about the most serious thing as possible. But yeah, I mean,
it's
I
like
could just go through
chess
this
preparation. I mean, really, like, Jennifer's not a chess player, but debate conversation is chess preparation is probably the most straightforward and easy way, and it's the well-developed, researched for over 100 years, and a lot of the very first artificial intelligence ended up moving in this direction. He said, like, it's a current, and you can't really fight the current, but by flowing a few conversations, you could see somewhat the direction, the trajectory your conversation's going, and then you gain more control. Because, like, historically, like, I was to do hundreds and hundreds of these practice synthesis problems till you get, there's really no other master all the various permutations like that, really for most calculus and physics, and they give you all the unknowns but one and permeate the question in multiple different likely to get an A. So flowing is like that also. So the more Jennifer does it with her own conversations go. So you can't really control the direction of a conversation, but by having these templates in directions and exhibit more control over it. And even, I think Jennifer's realized you can't visualize a conversation, except if it's flowed. So I'm excited to talk more about flowing. I could do a quick exercise to demonstrate something before you go over the flow if you want?
Sure.
So do you want to just say random few more things about your week? Did you do a restream last night also?
Debate as well. So I think I linked that. He didn't do very well. He seemed some, I don't know, he didn't really seem to be doing great. They really want me to lose a debate eventually, so that's that. And then Aiken Drum came on for about 20 minutes. That was nice. And he was talking about, well, he's talking about God a little bit. He's like, oh, you couldn't believe how great the efficiency. Or I was like, yep, you're gonna you're on your way to meet.
Yeah, so I just want to make the point of why flowing is such an important exercise. So in a regular debate, like flow implies that where's my mouse cursor? Oh, something's going wrong with my mouse. Sorry, 1 second. I'm not sure what was going wrong with my.
Yeah, you're not quite in the picture right now, so if you could move your camera a little bit to get just like towards your books a little bit more.
There's a time function, and and time is moving. The first person makes a point. So if you have two colors here, like this orange and then a blue for the other person, that if they would be made right there right there next to each other. And then if a new point is made that doesn't have each other's points, just kind of gets keep on adding at the bottom. So I was saying mathematically in a situation like this, because it's like a Gantt chart where it's there's a back and forth. So here you have one round, one back and forth, two back and forths, three back and forths, and on the fourth back and forth, so the guy, let's say, continues and makes a new point, but at the same time makes a point off the first point that was made. And so here you could draw an extension arrow to show this was the first point, and then here at this point in time, the person is addressing this point that was said at this earlier point in time. So the flow being like a Gantt chart to what previous arguments. And so if you keep on adding new arguments that don't have to do with previous arguments, it's going to keep on going down, as opposed to this guy, make a point off each point and maybe multiple points off each point. And so a good debate is basically horizontal, because people are, but then also sometimes they're like, oh, let me point off of something you said here, so I could extend the arrow here to show that now I'm addressing this point that you made back here, as opposed to adding a new point. And so are good conversations where people are not talking past each other, they're making direct points off each other. Suppose the vertical conversations are more people talking past each other. And so you could have a crap illogical conversation where nobody connects to each other, and there's no real sense between what one person said and the next person said. There's no real communication, but the flow could still show that, because the flow would to either points, and if the points were in relation to my earlier points, that would show. So I just make a completely new point that has nothing to do with previous points, that would go at the bottom. But if I know that in the flow, and that's why the flow is such a powerful tool for and why I was so insistent upon Jennifer actually doing this.
It sort of shows you when and why conversations fall apart, and also gives insight into what makes a conversation successful. And the reason why there's different colors is because of orange is for JF and purple is for me, but I also put the conventions and the definitions in purple, which channel information followed by general information, and then a bit of a dive about the Pauli exclusion principle and the chemical array of DNA, as well as I could have, instead of using the example for the emission and the absorption spectra, which sort of misses the point. I should have tied it together more neatly with the matter waves, but it's sort of a bit of a tough one. And then we eventually converged back to the periodic table and talked about how that is mapped out through the 3+1 template. And what I also wanted to do to get people used to what was said.
Just to interject, that
Go ahead.
could possibly be one of your all-time highlights when JF had the classical periodic table that everyone learns in school, and you said, go back to the periodic table. And he's like, I'm on the periodic
Oh
table.
my
He's
God.
like, no, the real, and then he was like, oh, she's got her own periodic table. That could be, one of your lifetime highlight reels.
Yeah, definitely. Like, go back to the real one. It's just me thinking out loud there. That was a good one, definitely. Yeah, I mean, in terms of how it went, like, I don't think it could have gone better. He was definitely more open than ever and asking good questions, and not just that, but actually going a step further and rephrasing what I said, which is one of the better learning / teaching strategies. Is it doesn't just work for the student, it works for the teacher as well, because people don't always say exactly what they mean, or they're not used to the exact words. So that it does help to just say, let me make sure I'm understanding you by rephrasing what they said. Sort of like the way Claire does, but without putting the bad spin on it, like a good faith representation of what the other person is saying. Because it's like with the flowing and the chunking, the practice is what eventually leads to proficiency.
Conversation.
It's conversation builder, right? Like if we think of a conversation as a living organism, and you can feed it healthy food or junk food or stab it in the back. So the repeating back to somebody is a sort of like a conversational apple. One a day keeps the conversational ambulance away. So I wanted to make explicit the axioms of Shannon information theory. So this would be read out for all Shannon information. There exists a source and an encoder and a signal and a receiver. So that's this here, just zoomed in a little bit more. So this would be read for all Shannon information. There exists a source, blah, blah, blah. And that Shannon information is a subset of signal forever. Maybe it would have gone better. I doubt it, because you do have to sort of have the right intention. So there was a connection, but other guy, not really much of an intention. Good way to rate things out. So when there's one tab from the left, it's sort of building on what was said before it and going into the actual logical expression corresponding to what was said. So the intersection between observability, and so because we can actually say, well, the line, we can draw that line, that pure forms are unobservable. Oh, that's the definition, like when you can put a boundary between two things, their intersection is 0. And being able to put a boundary on things is extremely important, because we have so tricky things that in a more flowy type of way. So I don't know if this is lining up 100% with what you'd expect from a flow, but I wanted to sort of show how things did reference back to the original points. And I think I did a good job of sort of wrapping it up at the end with the periodic table, because it's like the basic fundamental teaching. And then, this is a little bit too big now, but I managed to just sort of go through the actual teachings in a single diagram, which I am almost able to display as its totality. Here we go. Okay, so I think we could actually see this one. So we have just the very basic ideas. And I don't know if this like encompasses everything that was talked about, but I think it at least encompasses all the major ideas that I was talking about, and helps to see like, well, what's the basic level of presumptions in terms of structure, information in the universe. And it sort of shows why these conversations get so abstract and complex after a while, because we're like really only subject to the measurement limit, which is abstract yet not. And so it's like, what's the actual information? Well, trace it back to the source and then figure out how the information created the data. And because what you're getting at the end of it is data. Transcoding about reality and how we exist within it relative to everything else, as well as some diagrams that show how the ego chunks an undifferentiated potential into reasoning, which is then used to construe data, which is stuff coming in from that. I'll be putting that up on the blog at some point.
A precursor to your book, that flowing, like any advice for writing, makes these argument maps or just idea flows over various ideas, that those will be expandable into sections of chapters or chapters into the book, and then even to working flow of the whole book. So it's a extremely useful exercise. If you don't have your own ideas, you could flow other people's ideas to try to understand them better. You could flow books, like I flowed the Talmud just to try Biden or whoever you like listening to speeches. It's not fun, but it has unquestionable payoff, cognitive payoff for doing it.
Yeah, it's true. It's a lot of fun too. Macro time. So I'll share those unless there's something else you want to discuss.
Information pieces, chunks, so to say, into the quantum periodic table, more explanatory chunks for people to understand, and then parallels of similar processes that are related to the chunking, that this template of the quantum periodic table in many other ways could be like in relation to other ideas. It makes the understanding more powerful, and as a chunking type theory, just increases the size of the chunks.
Talmud, did it give you any insight that you didn't have prior?
Well, it allowed me to see the whole thing in totality, so it gave me substantial more insight, because said like you could memorize. So when I first started studying Talmud, like I would memorize pages even of Talmud. However, even if you could say something back word for word, hundreds of words or even thousands of words, it's not the same thing as having a trick. My father, when I was young, explained to me one of the very first time I was 16, and I think I drove geometric understanding of where you're going, and then there's the algebraic understanding of where you're going. So geometrically, I'm going to head west for another 10 miles. So it's like about west and east, and so geometrically you could kind of understand like that I'm moving, and to geometrically understand where I am to this highway, get on this direction, exit at exit so and so this direction, in an algebraic like step-by-step process, do this, do that. And both work, both are somewhat accurate in the direction. If you understand both, understanding a do this, do that without the geometric structure of what you're doing, you still might be all right. Larger geography which you're traversing, that makes like what if you miss the exit, if there's traffic. And so if it's algebraic and you're just like, okay, well, it says do this, do that, as opposed to geometric, where you could kind of figure out where you're trying to get, and even if you don't go the exact right to everything, and so in terms of a flow and argument structure, where you have the algebraic where he said this, she said that, I said that, you said this, versus somewhat like a geometric representation. So Talmudically, once you have the geometric memorization of the algebraic structure.
Abstraction. It's always consequent to geometry. Like in its fundamentally, algebra is describing geometry. And we have to cling to algebra sometimes. So do you mind if we restart and I'll just restart my computer? Because it might just be something screwing my computer, and if I restart it, it'll be back to normal.